Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's intuitive tapping break, another one this week. And this topic today, I think every single woman, but mainly we're going to focus on moms today. But I'm sure every single woman, every single person has probably felt this at some point in their life. And that is when you don't feel seen or heard or acknowledged or validated. You feel undervalued and misunderstood, basically. And so today we're going to do some intuitive tapping around that concept, around how we feel when we are misunderstood, when we're feeling undervalued as a mom, when we're not feeling noticed, when we feel unseen and unheard. And so this is something that I've experienced. I think every person has probably experienced this at some point in their life. And so today we are going to do some tapping for that. So if you are new here to my channel, welcome. My name is Megan Basita. I'm an energy management mentor, and I work with moms specifically to help them leverage their energy so that they can make the most out of their time. And one of the things that takes up a lot of fucking energy is what we feel, what we believe, and what we do because of what we feel and what we believe. And this is another concept. I want to help us shift perspective when we're thinking about not feeling valued, or when we're feeling misunderstood, or when we're feeling like somebody is not seeing us clearly, or they're misunderstanding us in some way, shape, or form. And so this could be in the form of your kids, your spouse, your parents, even, extended family, friends, coworkers. The thing that I really want to hone in on today, though, is really noticing who is the one who is not seeing you or not hearing you or making you feel misunderstood. And is it somebody who you choose to consider? So is it somebody, when I say that, I mean like it's somebody that I've chosen to consider their input in my life, which is my husband, my kids, and it basically stops there. But it does extend to some degree into extended family and friends as well. But it's not my specific point here is, the point, not my point, but the people that I'm really speaking specifically about who, it's a close, like my immediate family is basically who I'm talking about when we feel misunderstood or in that realm. So today we're going to do some tapping around that feeling, feeling annoyed, feeling discouraged, feeling angry, feeling sad. And ultimately, I think we feel hurt when somebody doesn't see us or hear us or validate us, or if we don't feel seen and heard, then we feel hurt, I think, upset. And so when we want to honor that feeling first and foremost, because we're not going to be able to see past that perspective until we hold space for that perspective, and it's not being held. Right? So somewhere someone is not holding they're not holding how we see things. And so this is where we can kind of release those expectations, release those attachments that somebody else is expected to hold our feelings and hold our beliefs and hold our value and hold our understanding of ourselves. And we can start to bring that power back towards us. We can start to gather our power back up with that. So before we get into our first round of tapping, I have a deck of cards here. We are going to pull a card that's going to kind of lead the way or help us guide us a little bit more. This is why I call it an intuitive tapping break, because I never actually know what I'm going to say, never know what cards are going to get pulled, what direction things are going to go in, and excuse me, it's kind of fun. It's kind of interesting, especially when we have such heavy topics sometimes. So the card deck that I'm using is called The Knowing, and it is by Seal Grove. It's just amazing. Oh, love it. Okay. So we've got the horse and clover. So this is the card that we're going to be working with. We're going to be drawing some inspiration from this, and I'm going to just quickly read this. So horse and clover. Release your resistance and fear. Do not believe your stories of inadequacy. Anthropologists have suggested that there is no other animal that has been more influential on the development of human culture and society than the horse. This incredible and noble animal has built us railroads and towns, carried us further distances than we could ever imagine on our own, and allowed us to win battles over other equine poor collectives. They have carried mankind figuratively and literally for thousands of years. Horses are thus symbolic of journey and freedom and of the importance of assessing where we may be bound by unnecessary limitations born out of the habit of fear, liberating the individual in the same manner that they have liberated humankind. So go faster, go further, and more confidently than we have ever before. And so when we are feeling stuck, small, or fearful, horse reminds us to push through perceived limitations with grace and power and to focus on the goal rather than the restrictions or difficulties. Clover, a plant often associated with magic and history, thanks to the Irish, plays a supportive role in this journey too, serving as a protective charm to those who consciously choose to move beyond their own habits and habitual selves. And so the question that we can tune into today on a side note is, am I making choices out of fear, or where am I limiting myself? And so let's apply that to what we're talking about today, is feeling unseen, feeling misunderstood in some way, shape, or form. And so where can we take back our power? Where can we take ourselves further? Where can we take ourselves quicker? Where can we shift that fear? Where can we shift that limitation in needing to have somebody else validate that for us, right? So having somebody validate that we are understood, or we're quote unquote normal, or that we are included, or that we are accepted. We seek that from other people, and we put a lot of pressure on people. We put a lot of expectations on people, and we give that to them without kind of taking responsibility of it for ourselves. So so just really tuning in. I'm going to show that card one more time here. So beautiful. I love it. So we're going to go ahead and start tapping, and really just tapping on the resistance. So we're going to go tap on the side of the hand here and say, even though I often like to feel included and validated by those I love, and I love and accept myself deeply and completely, even though sometimes this leaves me wanting. Sometimes I feel like I'm not good enough. Sometimes I feel invalidated because of what someone says or does, or because of what they don't do or say. And I love myself deeply and completely today. Say, even though it's sometimes hard, I feel angry and frustrated. I feel hurt and sad because someone close to me does not see or hear me the way I would like to be seen or heard. I give myself permission to feel these feelings today. And love and accept myself exactly where I am. Okay, we're going to move to the top of the head now and tap and say, all of this anger, eyebrow point, all of this sadness, side of the eye, all of these hurt feelings that I have underneath the eye. I just wish they could see me. Underneath the nose. I wish they could hear me. Underneath the mouth. I wish they could feel me. Collarbone point. And then I would feel accepted. Underneath the arms. Then I would feel understood. Underneath the chest. Then I would feel included. Wrist points. All of this resistance and expectation. Top of the head. I'm holding towards or because of. Eyebrow point. Not being seen or heard. Side of the eye. By this person. Underneath the eye. I give myself permission to see myself today. Underneath the nose. I give myself permission to hear myself today. Underneath the mouth. I give myself permission. Collarbone point. To hold the hurt that I am feeling. Underneath the arms, even though I would like somebody else to hold it for me. Underneath the chest. I forgive myself for believing. Wrist points. That because they don't see or hear me. Top of the head. It means that they don't care. Eyebrow point, even though sometimes that's how it feels. Side of the eye. I'd like to give myself permission today. Underneath the eye. To gather my power back. Underneath the nose. To release unrealistic expectations. Underneath the mouth. And to release the attachments. Collarbone point. That I have placed on myself and others. Underneath the arms. In order to feel understood. Underneath the chest. I wonder what I would need right now. Wrist points. To feel understood the way that I need. Top of the head. Without needing it to come from someone else today. All right, so just take a moment there, take a nice breath, take a drink of water if you have, or coffee or tea, whatever you're drinking, and just tune in for a minute and let that kind of settle in with you. I'm just trying to, I think one of the main things, like I had mentioned, is that we need to hold that hurt for ourselves. We need to hold our heart for ourselves. We need to hold our voice for ourselves. We need to hold our beliefs for ourselves and our feelings and what we're expecting or what we're asking for somebody to fulfill for us. We need to hold that for ourselves, and not because we cannot have somebody else fulfill that for us or hold it for us, but because of the expectations that we need to seek it from outside of us in order for it to be valid. And this is a huge thing that I came up against as a mom, especially as a stay-at-home mom with toddlers. This was when it really hit me the most, because I was in my own little bubble. I was in my own little world. I was like with my kids 24/7. My husband had work. He had a life outside of the home as well. And so it was a big learning curve for both of us to be able to give each other what we needed, while we were able to fulfill it for ourselves as well too. And so there's a couple different things, a couple different resources that were really super helpful for me. One was the 5 Love Languages by, I cannot remember his name, but you look up 5 love languages and you'll see it. There's 5 different love languages. I think they are physical touch, gifts, words of affirmation, quality time, and gifts, physical touch, words of affirmation, acts of service. I think that's the other one. And so it's really Sorry, I'm watching outside and I can see my horses. One of them is like way out in the bush. He's kind of, anyway, sorry, distracted by the real deal. Anyway, and so learning about my own personal love languages first and foremost was super, super helpful for me to be able to get clear on what it is that I wanted. So I know that many of us think that we're being very clear about what we want. You could be like, no, I'm fucking clear. I want the house cleaned this way. I want this done that way. The kids need to be here on time. I need somebody to pick them up and drop them off here and there for me. I want somebody to make the lunches. I want somebody to cook the dinner. It's very, very clear. But now take a look at that. And whatever it is that you want, I want you to take a look at how that applies to one of the 5 love languages. So is it an act of service that you want? Is that something that's really important to you? Is it gifts that you want, right? Do you want to feel appreciated when somebody brings you like candies and a chocolate or flowers or a gift, you know, something that they see on the way home from somewhere, or like just out of the blue, a gift that says, I've been thinking about you, and it's not generic, or it might be generic. It doesn't matter, right? Like it's just something somebody is giving to you as a gift to say that they have been thinking about you, right? How's this in the physical touch? I mean, do you need somebody to come home and give you a hug and a kiss, or do you need, do you need to sit down with somebody and have like quality time with you? So also I want to say too, physical touch does not mean sex necessarily. It's just a level of intimacy that you can only get while you're like touching physically, right? I've seen this once. We were hanging out with a couple and her husband was just like stroking her hair, and it was just like me and my husband and this other couple, and we were just like hanging out and talking, and like they were visiting. But I thought it was like super sweet that that's what he was doing and that's what she enjoyed, and it was like in public, and it was super sweet, right? It was super innocent. And then so that is something that I consider as something as physical touch. Now um, then you got like, what did I say? Quality time is when you actually sit together and you talk to each other and you say, you know, nobody's blowing up, nobody's getting mad, nobody's like making requests or demands. It's just like, you know, I mean, for us, it's watching some shows and we just laugh our asses off together and then we quote these shows together, you know, like that could be quality time. It really depends on what's there for you. So words of affirmation, that's the last one. So maybe you need somebody to tell you that what you're doing is very good. Like you're doing a good job. They appreciate what you're doing. They're validating you through those words of affirmation. Or maybe you want somebody, yeah, maybe like a card or a letter or an email or a text, you know, like whatever it might be that just tells you that you're doing a good job, that they can see you, that they can hear you, that they know what you're doing in some way, shape, or form, or they, I mean, who knows, maybe you enjoy poetry and you want somebody to write you poetry or something. So the first part of it is definitely understanding your own love language, asking yourself, what is it that I want somebody to do that I'm not feeling seen or heard or understood in? And how does that apply to, how can you correlate that with your love language, right? And so if I think there's like a quiz online, you can go and do a quiz, and it'll tell you exactly what your love language is if you're feeling a little bit uncertain, which I was uncertain at first when I did that, because I for sure thought I would have been like a words of affirmation, and I am not. For me, words are cheap. I don't appreciate the word. I could give 2 shits whether somebody says I'm doing a good job or not. But let's also like look at the other side of the coin. If you are with somebody whose love language is words of affirmation, and they think that your love language is words of affirmation, or that they're able to express to you something through their love language, but it's not your love language, you can work with that, you know. um, and so, anyway, my point being is that when we can understand on a deeper level why we want to know, or why we want to feel understood, why we want somebody to validate us in a way, in a certain way, shape, or form, and we can start to give that to ourselves, a lot of the time it releases the pressure, it releases the expectation put on the other person, and then naturally they will probably just kind of swing around, which is exactly what happened to me. Me and my husband are very, very different people. We have different love languages. We have different ways of doing things. We have similar values, and we always get to those values. But the way that we get to those values are very different, very, very different. And I've had to learn to, you know, request things in a certain way or be very straightforward with him because he is a very verbal person. He's a Gemini and I'm a Pisces. It's like, what the fuck, man? Like, don't you pick up on my mood right now? And he's like, fuck no. Like, no, he doesn't. He doesn't. And also vice versa. I can pick up on things that he's feeling or putting out there, but it has nothing to do with me. And anyway, so this is a whole different conversation. So there's so many different nuances, so many different dynamics that you can play with. But the thing is can you give yourself what you need before asking, before requesting it from somebody else? Or can you fulfill it like a quarter of the way before you go ahead and ask somebody to do the rest of the tank, kind of thing, right? And I think I want to just share this last little piece about if somebody is not understanding you, say for your instance, like your spouse doesn't understand you right now, you could be going in, like you're probably in different seasons of life, first off. And then secondly, it doesn't mean that they don't care. It does not mean that they don't love you. It does not mean that they don't want to support you. It just means that the way that they would support you is not meeting the needs of how you want to be supported. And so you can go round and round and round and like, skirt around the surface of what's going on. Or you can get into the thing behind the thing. And I also caveat, if you get curious and go into the thing behind the thing for yourself, it's going to open up doors for both of you. You don't necessarily need them to be on board. My husband does not, he's not into any of this shit, really. We do have good conversations. We do have similar interests in other ways that we kind of meet in the middle. But like, he's not one to go to counseling. He doesn't want to sit there and do, like, not with anybody else other than myself, right? Like, I mean, he's not going to be, and I shouldn't say that he's not open and honest, but he is in his own certain way, right? Like he's open to expressing these kinds of things, but in his own way. And so I have to understand that about him, just like he has to understand that about me, and we have to find some middle ground. And so we're going to move into the next round of tapping. And so let's move into the next round of tapping, and let's tap on allowing ourselves to be what it is that we need to feel satisfied or satiated or fulfilled initially, right? So we're gonna go to the side of the hand and we're gonna tap. Excuse me, I've got like the hiccups. I'm like almost getting the hiccups, I'm sorry. And say, even though in the past I have needed someone to acknowledge me in a certain way. Otherwise, I would feel misunderstood. I can see this now today. And I love and accept where I am at. Even though it's still upsetting, and I might still get hurt, I'm starting to realize how to work with my love language as well as with theirs. And I give myself permission to be gentle and be patient. And I love and accept myself now anyway. Even though it's sometimes discouraging and frustrating. As I begin to learn my love language and their love language, and how we can get along together, I love and accept myself where I'm at today. Okay, we're going to go to the top of the head and say, I'm beginning to start eyebrow point to see how this works. Side of the eye. I understand underneath the eye more today. underneath the nose, about what I need and want, underneath the mouth, and how I can get the ball rolling for myself. Collarbone point, so that I can show the other person, underneath the arms, what I mean, underneath the chest, so that I can relieve this other person, wrist points, of pressure and expectation, top of the head, to being the sole validator, eyebrow point, for being the sole person to acknowledge me, side of the eye, for being the sole power, underneath the eye, that makes me feel seen, heard, and understood, underneath the nose. This also relieves me, underneath the mouth, from the pressure and expectations, collarbone point, that I believe, underneath the arms, or that I make mean, underneath the chest, something that it doesn't, wrist points. I can choose to believe, top of the head, that if my spouse, eyebrow point, doesn't understand me in a certain way, side of the eye, that they don't care, underneath the eye, that they're not being supportive or loving, underneath the nose. Or I can choose to believe, underneath the eye. I can choose to see this differently, collarbone point. I can choose to believe, underneath the arm, that they just don't know exactly what I need, underneath the chest. There's been a miscommunication, underneath the wrist point, sorry. There's been a misunderstanding, top of the head. And I give myself permission now, eyebrow point, to gather my thoughts, my feelings, and my my energy, side of the eye, so that I can get organized within myself, underneath the eyes. I can get clear within myself, underneath the nose, about what it is that I really need, underneath the mouth, the thing that's coming behind the thing, collarbone point, the thing that's brewing beneath the surface, underneath the arms. And I give myself permission, underneath the chest, to explore this more today. All right, so go ahead and just take another gentle breath, take a moment, and just tune into how that's been landing for you. And as you're taking stock, again, coming back to what it is that you're asking, or where it is that you feel you're misunderstood or you're not being valued or noticed, And how does that apply to your particular love languages and or language, whichever, if you have one or more. And then really, we choose to consider the people in our life, right? We choose to consider our spouse's, input in our life, right? So if we're going to choose to consider that, then getting from like moving from a reactive state, a state where we feel like we are feeling that pressure, we're feeling that we're feeling some heightened emotion. If we can own that, and if we can kind of turn the dial down on that, or acknowledge it, not even turn the dial down, but acknowledge it enough so that it's not as intense, especially as an emotional person. I am a very emotional person. My knee-jerk reactions to everything is anger, and then sadness, like tears, basically. Not sadness, really. I'm an angry person when I get angry, or when I react to things. I'm an angry person, and so really holding space for that, like we mentioned before in the first round, we can hold that feeling, we can hold our heart, we can hold that hurt, we can hold that anger for ourselves, and we don't have to take it out on them. Yes, they're involved, but we can meet ourselves where we're at so that we can kind of neutralize and process and integrate what we're moving through and why we're feeling reactive, because of what the other person is doing. And then we can go to that person. And this is something that I've had to learn, is I can't go to my husband when I'm wound up, because then he gets wound up and nobody gets anywhere. But if I'm able to hold the space for myself and kind of like invite in whatever he has to say, excuse me, or vice versa, when he is going through some shit, as long as I don't get involved in it, if I don't participate, if I don't let that energy snowball over me and accumulate me, and then I get angry because he's angry, as long as I'm able to hold space for that, that is, you know, that's where I can let him be angry. I can let him be hurt. I can let him go through the emotions that he needs to go through the thought process, whatever it might be, without getting too involved and trying to like work the shit out through whatever we're experiencing. Sometimes people just need to hold, sometimes people just need to feel. And we don't want somebody else to get in there and get dirty with us, but we do want to we want some kind of a connection while we're doing it. And this is exactly how I feel about things. This is why I get coaching. This is why I have a mentor, and this is why I have a tapping buddy. And because I want to be able to work through these things with somebody who is down there working through them with me, but they're not trying to overtake what I'm trying to learn, or they're not trying to fix it. They're not trying to, you know, they're being helpful, but they're not getting their hands dirty, and they're with me. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense. The last thing that I want to share before we sign off today is that if you are asking your spouse to do something for you, if you are asking your kids to do something for you, or if you are asking for some kind of validation or some kind of affirmation or acknowledgement through somebody else, and they are not giving it to you, my unpopular opinion is you're not talking to the right person. So yes, you may want your husband to acknowledge that you're doing a good job as a homemaker, as a stay-at-home mom in your business, whatever it might be. And if they're not doing it, stop talking to them. Stop asking them to do what they are not able to do, because it's just going to create resistance. It's going to create resentment. It's going to create a big divide. And I was lucky enough to kind of nip this in the bud early on, because the person that I was talking to, my husband, didn't understand. I stopped talking to him about it, and I went and got a coach. I went and found myself a mentor, and she helped me sift and sort through all of the things that was coming up. I had some pretty deep beliefs about where our relationship was going to go, and it didn't go that way, because somebody was able to hold space for me neutrally. She understood from a different perspective what was going on. She asked the right questions. She didn't get emotionally reactive. She didn't take things personally, because she's a coach. She's separated from the situation, but she's invested enough to hold the space for me. So it's sometimes really hard, but it's only for the moment, right? So then when you start to get yourself in in alignment, if you start to get your beliefs in check and you start to realign your beliefs and you start to work on your emotional regulation and your nervous system regulation, and you start to go through, different layers of what you need to feel settled as you move into a relationship conversation, or as you move through parenting your kids. I mean, this is a huge thing that I have noticed for my kids. If I am doing my work for myself, and I'm holding space for myself, my kids can shit hits the fan, and I am cool as a cucumber. I don't take it personally. They can call me anything under the sun that they want to. I know that they're just angry. They're young. They're 8 and 10. They have their moments, and they're starting to get a vocabulary on them that's just like, whoa. Part of it's me. I'm the reason why too. I swear around my kids. Anyway, but as things come up, they lose their shit. And when I'm taking care of myself, I can let them hit the fan. I don't feel triggered at all. I don't feel reactive at all. I want to make sure that they're safe, and I want to make sure that they're not hurting their, like busting their stuff. But sometimes there's consequences for that, right? Anyway, so holding space for myself, doing my own work helps me be more patient and more present for my kids. So I don't take personally what they're going through. Same with my husband. If he comes home from a bad day at work, sometimes I do get wrapped up into, oh my God, what did I do? Because we both kind of go silent. We both go nonverbal sometimes. And then, it was funny because the other day this happened, and he's like, I don't know, he kind of softened a little bit, and then I softened a little bit, and I was like, but you're like, are you mad at me? And he's like, no, I thought you were mad at me. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sakes. Like, no, like, I thought you were pissed off because whatever, and it's work shit, right? Like, so really, if I'm doing my work, I can hold space for that. Usually it shifts, or usually I can be like, what the fuck? What is going on? But I'm not attached to it, right? I'm not going to take it personally. Anyway, so finding counseling, finding therapist, finding a coach or a mentor. I have spots open right now for EFT sessions. I have spots open right now for energy management sessions. I have spots open. Actually, you can also join my free membership, my free community right now, the energy-led mompreneur. So if you're a mom, if you're a stay-at-home mom, if you're a mom with a side business where you are kind of trying to make some money, or you have a full-time business where you're setting the schedule and you're kind of running the show and calling all the shots, come into this space, the energy-led mompreneur. I'll link whatever you need to know below. So there's 3 different options there if you resonate with my style, or if you resonate finding somebody else that you resonate with, and really ask somebody who is not involved to hold space, but who is qualified to hold space, and who is, really paying attention to what you need in the moment. So I hope today gave a little bit of clarity on what you need in the moment. And then really, asking for that support so that you can hold space for yourself, so that you're not feeling like the people who are not validating you are not the only people that can validate you, right? And sometimes we think that our spouse or our kids or our parents are the only ones that have that power for us because they're our close inner circle. And it's not true. It's not true. There's other people out there that you can reach out to, that they can take the pressure off of those relationships, and then you can ease back into those relationships. I mean, you're never really leaving those relationships. You're just not talking about the things that are pressured in that relationship from a triggered or pressured space right within yourself. So I hope that this makes sense for you guys. Again, here's our beautiful card from the deck, the Knowing. I highly recommend checking this deck out. It's super beautiful. I love it. And it's really cool because the woman lives in BC and I live in BC. And so it's always exciting when I find people that are near me or in my neck of the woods, province, whatever. So have an amazing rest of your day. I hope that this has helped you in some way, shape, or form today. If you're interested in any of the things that I have offered, check down below, or if you don't see anything down there, reach out by email or DM. DM on Instagram is probably best, and we can go from there. So have an amazing rest of your day. We'll chat with you guys soon. Bye.